Грушица кудрявая, годик кучерявая, ты стоишь зеленая, Величавая. Hi, welcome to GlobeSongs. I'm Carla Seidel. Today on GlobeSongs, we're going to be talking about the Russian folk song Grushitsa, which means little pear tree. I was introduced to this song by the Siberian-born performer, composer, and choir leader Polina Shepherd, who's now based in the UK. She has a project called Sing With Me, which you can also find on YouTube, in which she teaches people Russian and Yiddish songs, and this one was number 37 in the series. So thank you to her for the introduction to this song and also for sharing her arrangement, which I relied on to learn this song. So first of all, let's situate ourselves with pears and Russia. Russia, or the Russian Federation, is a country that spans Eastern Europe and Northern Asia. It is the largest country in the world by area. It covers about 6.6 million square miles, making it close to twice the size of the US and more than 1/8 of the Earth's inhabited land area. They have some extreme weather in Russia, but the people can still manage to consume many kinds of fruits. They grow a lot and they also import a lot. The southern regions of Russia, including the lower Volga region, are pretty favorable for the cultivation of a lot of fruits, including pears, which, along with apples, are one of the most popular fruits to consume in Russia. Now, reading about Russia and fruits, I came across dachas. That's the Russian term for a summer house or cottage that many Russians have outside of the city. The dacha seems important to Russian culture. It seems that a lot of folks do small-scale gardening, grow their own food in dachas where possible. They tend to much prefer locally grown produce for its freshness and to avoid pesticides. Still, the demand for fruits is outpacing the local supply. As a 2011 Wall Street Journal article revealed, Russia is the largest importer of apples and pears in the world, actually. And quoting the US Department of Agriculture, Russians are eating more fruit and diversifying the types of fruit they consume due to increasing disposable incomes and a trend toward eating more healthy diets. While the demand for fruit is growing, incidentally, the USDA says Russians still eat much less fruit per capita than do people in the US, Europe, Japan, and China. But back to our song, Grushitsa, little pear tree, and itsa there is a diminutive suffix that's added to grusha, or pear. These suffixes in Russian show that something is small or show care, like calling someone a dear one, adding itsa to the name. The pear tree is definitely revered as special in this song. The lyrics translate to, "Leafy pear tree, oh you curly-branched, you stand green, majestic, all admire you, the wide river, the clear dawn, and I, the lonely one. He has gone away, far away, my blue-eyed dear one. My heart yearns to see him soon, and sings of him. Where are you, my dear one? Answer soon, my love. The pear tree is blooming in the garden, yearning for our meeting." The song's narrator is in a sense comparing herself to the pear tree. She is lonely and maybe admired just like the tree. Maybe she feels she is in bloom as well, ready to be with her loved one, but the time is passing and the bloom can't last forever. So there's a sense of urgency and sadness that the right moment is not being seized. Now, certainly there are sad, wistful love songs in many cultures, but some people believe that Russian music has a particularly melancholy mood, and Russian literature for that matter. Think of the works of the famous writer Dostoevsky, for example. Now, in a reflection for a publication of HSE University St. Petersburg, Sergei Nesterov writes, "I think the Russians just understand sadness much deeper than the rest of the world because of all the tribulation our nation has suffered for so many years. Russian musicians understand sadness much deeper because we suffered a lot, and that is why we learnt how to put our negative emotions into music so well. Think of in the 19th century the wars, the cold winters, the poverty, etc. that the Russians endured. And then in the 20th century, people were scared of war and people were oppressed by the government." Exactly how old this song is a mystery. It has been sung and arranged by many, including Rimsky-Korsakov. It's been performed by many, many choirs, including the famous State Academic Russian Choir of the USSR, also known as Sveshnikov's Choir, led by Alexander Sveshnikov. One of the most famous versions of the song has been sung by Zinaida Kirillova, who recorded it on her 1981 album, Russian Folk and Contemporary Songs. The song also appears in the 1960 film Seryoza or Sergei. Apparently there's also a Ukrainian folk ensemble who claims it as an old Ukrainian song, but in all the mentions I've found, it's always credited as a Russian folk song. Incidentally, while Russia is a multi-ethnic country with some 200 or 300 ethnic groups, Russians dominate the country's population with about 81% of the population. In Soviet Russia, folk music was categorized as being democratic, of the people, or proletarian, of the working class, as opposed to art music, which was often regarded as being bourgeois. After the revolution, folk music received significant support from the state. In post-World War II Russia, folkloric music continued to have widespread support among the population, inside and outside of the Soviet Union. But the authentic nature of folk music was also distorted, says the article on Russian traditional music in Wikipedia, by the drive to professionalize performers. All folk singers were required to learn Western-style classical notation and to learn to perform the classical repertoire. The Wikipedia article I just mentioned divides ethnically Russian music into 3 categories: authentic folk music tied with village life and traditions, folkloric music such as that performed by folkloric ensembles that collect the more authentic songs and then stylize them for performance to, for example, Western audiences, and artistic folkloric music, also known as folkloric performance. And this last category, the songs may be inspired by folk traditions, but they're composed by city intelligentsia and professional composers, sometimes even for political ends. As in all Western folklore traditions, Wikipedia clarifies, the distinction is difficult to draw, as in the 19th century, intellectuals would both collect folk music, not always being accurate about their source material, and conflate it with original compositions. It seems that authentic Russian folk music was primarily vocal, an integral part of daily village life, and that it has roots in Orthodox church services where many parts of the service are sung. The chest register singing that you might have heard of, or white voice, is the authentic village singing style. Now, the recordings I've heard of this song, Grushitsa, are definitely not this. They are choral arrangements that seem like they have been westernized quite a bit. There's an interesting paper by Laura Olson of the University of Colorado called Soviet Approaches to Folk Music Performance, Revival or Appropriation? and she shows why folk culture was of use to the regime during the Stalin period. Folklore was used to promote the myth of the rural idol, she writes. Soviet rhetoric strongly advocated preservation of Russian folk culture, and Soviet policy devoted increasing funds to the education and promotion of folk music and dance. Beginning during the Stalin period, professional composers would add voices, or, in other words, harmonize folk melodies. They would use folk texts for new compositions, or would even make up text and melody and accompaniment in the folk style. Some types of folk songs that were traditional folk songs that included decadent, irreverent, or politically dangerous content were banned under the USSR. But this song, Grushitsa, would have been safe folklore, no doubt, something definitely to be promoted. Was Grushitsa somehow part of this reinventing of rural folklore? I would guess that this song is in the middle category, folkloric music. It probably has traditional origins, but most likely it was westernized and removed from the style that it would have been sung in by rural peasants in the 19th century or earlier, assuming that the song dates back that far. If any viewers of this know more about the origins of this song or have a different idea, please let us know your thoughts in the comments. But here's the song for you now. I think it's a really beautiful one, a very special one. If you'd like to learn to sing it, or many other Russian and Yiddish songs, do check out Polina Shepard's website and her project Sing With Me, and I'll link to that in the description. Thank you for joining me on GlobeSongs today. Be well. Грушица.